Hello class. Today we're going to be talking about the nervous system. Now, what are some things you know about your nervous system? You may be familiar with your senses, obviously, the fact that you can control your body in space. You may be familiar with a lot of the things your nervous system does, right? Controlling the smooth muscle contractions that move through food through your digestive system. Controlling different parts of your hormones being released that affect your kidney, like antidiuretic hormone, controlling fluid balance in your body. But we're going to be drawing your attention to how the nervous system actually accomplishes these feats. Now, first up, what are the components of your nervous system? What are the components of your nervous system? Well, it is made up of the brain, it is made up of the spinal cord, and it is made up of your senses and your nerves. Now, senses, nerves, I may be able to group those into one thing, but some sensory neurons are quite specialized. Now, our nervous system can be broken down into two main parts, one being your central nervous system, and the other being your peripheral nervous system. Your central nervous system is going to be your brain and your spinal cord. Now, your brain is the main processing unit of the nervous system. This is where all of your complex thought happens. This is where interpretation of your senses happens, right? This is a very, very important organ to humans' success as a species. Now, your spinal cord is mainly a highway through which nervous signals go from your brain to the other parts of your body, but it does have some specialized function. The peripheral nervous system is going to be all of the nerves that, control your fine motor controls, or maybe it innervates your smooth muscle on your intestines, right? Take your pick. It's going to be every nerve in your body that is not your spinal cord and your brain. Now, your peripheral nervous system effectively connects the different parts of your body to the central nervous system, and we can break this peripheral nervous system down into two main components: the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Some of you may already know, just based on that word, what that means, right? Do you think the autonomic nervous system is under our control? Can we consciously control our autonomic nervous system? No, it's automatic, right? It's something that is not under our control, which means that the somatic must be under our control. So, the somatic nervous system is the portion of the nervous system responsible for voluntary body movement and sensing external stimuli. Now, a person's sense of touch, taste, sight, sound, and smell are controlled by the somatic nervous system. Keep in mind, we do have much more senses than just those five. Those are your five primary senses, but we do have a ton more, right? Equilibrioception. You have the fluid in your inner ear that tells you your relation in space to Earth, right? You have proprioception, the ability to know where your limbs are in space in relation, right? So we do have much more than five senses, just keep that in mind. So again, your somatic nervous system is your voluntary control of skeletal muscle, as well as your senses. Now, this is the system that's also responsible for sensations of heat, cold, pain, as well as all of those other senses I was talking about. And also, one kind of exception here when it comes to skeletal muscle is the reflex arc associated with, something like, let's say you're cooking some food on the stove and you forgot, you have one of those fancy glass top stoves, you forgot it's hot, you place your hand on the stove. what is going to happen? Are you just going to leave your hand there? No, of course not. You'll find that you instantly pull your hand back. Now that is an involuntary response called a reflex arc. That is actually not under your control. Now, how does these reflex arcs work? Well, essentially, it actually, it doesn't go to your main processing center, that sensory stimuli. You'll feel that pain, right, that sensation of pain, that signal will go to your spinal cord, and to save time, and thus saving too much damage to your hand, the spinal cord takes care of the processing here and sends this signal directly to your skeletal muscle to retract. So again, instead of taking that extra time for the signal to go to your brain to process it, and then send that signal back to your muscle, when it comes to reflexes, those are actually the special function of your spinal cord. So your spinal cord does do some processing when it does come to these reflexes. Okay, now let's explore the autonomic nervous system. Now, autonomic, automatic, it is involuntary, and this is the system by which we regulate the internal environment of our bodies, right? This is the system that maintains homeostasis, and the system we do not need to think about. Now, it's going to involve all of our involuntary muscles as well, our cardiac muscle, our smooth muscle, and this is out of our control. Now, the autonomic nervous system is broken down into two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And these are better known as your fight and flight response and your rest and digest response. I talked a little bit about these in the digestive system, but we're going to explore them here in a little bit more detail. Now, these two systems, don't think of them as being on-off switches. Okay? Really what's happening is they are fighting for control. So, if your organ, let's say for example, your heart, right? It's receiving signals from both systems, your sympathetic and parasympathetic, and the one that wins, the one that has more stimulation, right, is firing more often than the other, that is the response that you get. So let's say you see a lion out in the wild. Your sympathetic nerve fibers are going to be firing like crazy, and thus it's going to overpower all of the signals coming from your parasympathetic division, and your heart rate will go up drastically. Okay, so really you have these two systems constantly vying for control, and it's the one where there is more nervous stimulation that will win out. So what happens for your parasympathetic, your rest and digest? So if you're in that state, well, your pupils will constrict, letting less light in. It stimulates saliva production, right, aiding in the breakdown of food, the formation of a bolus, so aiding in that digestion. You get constriction of your bronchi, right? You don't need the same oxygen demand because you're not going to be running away from a lion. Your heart rate slows, stimulates your stomach, your pancreas, your intestines to get that digestive process rolling. It stimulates urination. Clearly, you would not want to urinate if you're being chased by a lion. And it promotes erection of the genitals. In fact, both systems are kind of involved in the sexual side, which is quite interesting because you need the parasympathetic for erections and you need the sympathetic for ejaculation. Now, when it comes to the sympathetic division, right, your fight or flight response, your pupils will dilate, allowing more light in, right? You have better sensory perception of your environment. It inhibits saliva production, right? Have you ever been, before a big concert, before a big sporting event, and you get that dry mouth sensation? That's because your fight and flight system is in place because of that stress you are experiencing. Your bronchi dilate, right, to increase gas exchange. Your heart rate speeds up to get those gases, the respiratory gases, to your muscles to get ready to run. You get the stimulation of epinephrine, norepinephrine, right? The adrenaline, which is going to increase your heart rate, all of those other things. You get, inhibition of all of your excretion and digestion, and it does promote ejaculation. So again, fight or flight, your body's literally getting ready to fully or fight, and usually this is considered under stress, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a lion. It can be other types of stress as well, big sporting event, big concert, something like that. Now when it comes to parasympathetic, rest and digest, this is mainly in place when there is little stress and you are in a position where you can take the time to break down your food, urinate, do all of those things that your body would not want to do under high stress situations. Now, as I said, these two systems act antagonistically. They're always vying for control. It's whatever one has more stimulation, is sending more of those nervous signals, will win out in the end. So those are the branches of your nervous system. You have your central nervous system, which is your brain spinal cord, right? The main processing facility and the highway of nerves. And then you have your peripheral nervous system, which is connecting all the parts of your body to that central nervous system. Now that peripheral nervous system can be broken down into the somatic, which is your senses and voluntary muscles, aka your skeletal muscle, as well as the autonomic, which is all of your smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, those things outside of your control that are involuntary to maintain homeostasis. Next class, we will be exploring the brain and how that central processing unit works. Right on. Have a wonderful day, everyone.